Hey, what's up everyone? Today's video, we're going to create a new menu for the gallery items. So when we create a gallery and we add it into the canvas, we always have this arrow, which is kind of like ugly nowadays, right? So we're going to create something completely new. We're not going to add buttons or anything. We're going to use a modern controls. Which one is it? Let's find out. So I've created a blank canvas app and I've added my data source, which is a list in SharePoint, which is called events. So if we look at the list, this is what we are going to work with. And that is just a list with a couple of items. And we're going to add this in our gallery. So let's go back to PowerApps. I'm going to switch into the tree view and we're going to add our vertical gallery. So if I go to insert, I don't necessarily see my modern controls in here. So I need to go into settings. Under general, I'm going to scroll down and then I'm going to have modern controls and themes. I'm going to turn that on and I'm going to click on close. Now, if I go back into the insert menu, I can see that it's different and I can choose the modern vertical gallery. And my tenant has the new menu, as you can see at the top. We're going to click on events. And we're also going to change the layout because we do not need to have something very fancy in here. Go into layout and we're going to choose title and subtitle. That's enough for what we have to do. And as I said at the beginning, you can see that we have this arrow. So usually either we navigate to something or we display something. But we're going to get rid of this arrow because what we want to build is a menu with more functionalities. Let's select the arrow and get rid of it. Now, the modern control that we are going to use is the tab list control. So make sure you select the template item, go into insert and search for tab. We have the tab list and we can use this as a navigation as well, which is also great for having a different navigation than just icons. Now, what we need to do is that we don't want necessarily our items to show like this, but if we scale down, you can see that we start having the 3 dots. So we're going to make it very small. And now we only have the 3 dots in here. Let me zoom in there. And then we're just going to move it. Yeah. Maybe right here, we'll be all right with that. And I'm going to play the app. And if we click on the 3 dots, this is how the items are showing, which is kind of nice. So if we click on this control in the items property, if we know exactly what we want to do with this item, we can just hard code the values in here. You can connect to a data source if you want to, but in our case, we're actually going to create a table. So I'm going to add value, column, and then edit. And I'm going to grab the exact same thing, separated by a comma. And I'm going to change this one to delete. If I play the app now, then we have edit and delete. We can click on each. Obviously, it doesn't do anything at this point, but we're going to change that. Let's add a form. On the right-hand side, we're going to choose the new preview form. I'm going to put that on the right. I'm going to connect that to my events list as well. And for the fields, if we look at what we have, title, event description, country, start and end date, that's what we have in here. And the attachment, we don't need that. Let's remove it. And this is what we have at this point. If we select the form, we have the default mode, which is currently in edit, and we're going to set it to view. When you select the form, and we're going to go into the item property, and what we want to see here is gallery 1, which is the name of our gallery, dot selected. So right now, the one that's selected is the bus tour. So that's what is actually displayed in the form. Let's do something with our edit and delete item. So I'm going to select the 3 dots, go into the onSelect property. And instead of selecting the parent, we're going to remove that. And we have 2 options right now. We have edit and we have delete. If we click on edit, we want to do something. If we click on delete, we want to do something. And we're going to use a switch instead of using an if statement. You can use an if statement if you want, but the switch is much cleaner. When we click on one of the selected item, so self.selected.value, we have the edit and we have the delete. So what do we want to do for each of those? Let's say, for example, that when we click edit, we want the form to be in edit mode. And to do that, just after the edit, we put whatever we want to do. In our case, it's going to be edit form, and this is going to be our form 1. Now we need to put a comma. We can add multiple things in here. Maybe after editing the form, we want to do something else, and we can add whatever we want in here. And we'll see that later in the video. Next, for the delete, here we want to delete the item. And then select our list, and we'll do this item. And that's all we do for now for this. So if I play the app and I go into edit, so again, this is the bus tour, and you can see that this is not in edit mode right now. Let's click on edit, and you can see that the form is now in edit mode. We can change the date if we want to. We can add something in here. Let's say bus tour 2, for example. But right now we have nothing to submit or cancel. So let's add those 2 buttons very quickly. I'm going to just reduce the size of the form, and I'm going to add 2 buttons. So one is going to be cancel. And in case you haven't seen that before, we can actually now add icons into buttons very quickly. So we have the icon. So we're going to call that cancel. Let's add the cancel icon. So a dismiss there, for example. We can put the icon before, after. As you can see, we can put the text only or the icon only. I kind of like when the icon is actually before, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the color and set that as secondary in here. And I'm going to copy this and do another button. And I'm going to call that submit. I'm going to put the check mark, and I'm also going to put the type to primary again. So for the submit button in the onSelect property, we're simply going to submit the form, which is form 1. And when we do that, we also want the form to go back into view mode. For the cancel button onSelect, we're going to change that into view form only. And we're also going to change the display mode for the submit button, because when we submit, we want the form to go back into view mode as well. So let's try this out. Now we are currently in edit mode. If I click on cancel, then I'm going back into a view mode for the form. And if I click on edit again, then the button is now visible. Now, obviously we can change this button to have a different display mode as well, but let's forget about that now. It doesn't matter. All right. So now we have our edit button, which is working perfectly, and we need to work on the delete option. And right now, if I click on the 3 dots and I look at what I have here, if I normally click on delete, then the event should be deleted. Let's try. And I'm going to choose, well, the bus tour. Let's continue with that one. And I click on delete, and it's actually working. So the item has been completely deleted. I can go into SharePoint. I'm going to refresh, and the item has been completely deleted. Now, the thing with that is that if I go back in here, it might be a little bit too brutal to not see anything when I delete an item. Usually what we do is we create a pop-up and we say, are you sure you want to delete this item? So that's what we're going to do. Let's create a quick pop-up and see how we can connect both of them. Let me zoom out for a second. I'm going to add a rectangle, make it take the entire screen of the app. I'm going to change the name for that. So usually what I like to do is when I create a pop-up, I like to put either pop-up in the name at the beginning or at the end. So when we're going to group all the controls that we have in our pop-up, at least we know what needs to be grouped. I'm going to change the color for this. And then I'm going to add a container. So just a normal container. I'm going to put that in the middle, change the color. I'm going to change the name. Then I'm going to select the container and I'm going to insert some text. Then again, in the container, we're going to add 2 buttons. Now, there's one thing in here. If we look at this, we have our pop-up container and our pop-up background. Now we're going to select both of those and we're going to group them. So right click, group, and I'm going to rename that. I'm simply going to call group pop-up, doesn't matter. And one thing that's important here is make sure that the container is first before the pop-up background in here. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Let's go back into the tab list item in here. And obviously, when we click delete, we want this pop-up to show up. We do not want to remove the event anymore. I'm going to comment that out, but I'm going to grab it because we want this action to be performed when we click on yes, delete now. Let's copy that, go back into the button, unselect. I'm going to paste it. And now we have an error. So why do we have an error? We're trying to do something with this item and we are completely outside of the gallery here. So it's not going to work. Let's go back to the tab list and change the formula that we have. We're going to use a local variable in here. What we're doing is we're creating a local variable and we say, just grab this item. We don't enter any other property, whether it's the name or the title or anything like that. We want to grab absolutely everything. And now when we go back to the button, we're going to change this item with the name of the variable we've just created. And now the error is gone. All right, fantastic. There's another thing that we need to do in the delete action when we click on the menu. And that is obviously showing the pop-up. We're going to do the exact same thing. So under delete, like I said at the beginning, you can actually put multiple things in here when you click on that specific menu. We're going to create another local variable and we're going to set it to true. When we click on the button, we want the pop-up to show. Go into the pop-up, so the group itself. Go into the visible property, and instead of true, we're going to set our variable in here. And when we click on cancel, should have obviously renamed it at the beginning. I think it's this one, button cancel, hopefully, button delete. So in the cancel button, on the unselect, we want to close the pop-up. So we do the same. Show pop-up, we set that to false. And now let's try it. And if we do delete, we have the pop-up that is showing. I'm going to do cancel. So we go back in here. Great. And if we click on delete, now it's working. The item is gone. Now, what needs to happen, we forgot to do, is when we click on yes, delete, we also need to set the value of the pop-up to false. So let's just do this quickly. Local show pop-up set to false. Let's try again. Do it with the card tournament. Let's go on to delete. Yes, delete, and then it's all done. All right, so that's it for today. I actually think that creating a menu like that for the items is actually cleaner instead of having like an arrow or just buttons. So make sure to like and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.